On the state capture inquiry, we're going to cross to our reporter Manqoba Mchunu, who is standing by for us in Parktown. A very good afternoon to you, Manqoba. Again, we're going back into history and facts or revelations or testimony rather coming out about what exactly has taken place in IPID.
Indeed, Zinga, that's the case. And of course, this is not the first time we're hearing of this Zimbabwean rendition case implicating the then Hawks head, Anwa Dramat, as well as the Gauteng provincial head at the time, Shadrack Sibiya. And of course, this was testimony from then IPID boss Robert McBride here in April, again going through the details of what really happened in that case. And recall him saying that, this case was a mere conspiracy from start to finish. And of course, this is being supported by Mr. Sesoko, who is also the head of investigations at IPID. He says, of course, that, there was from the start, some sort of an indication that they wanted to paint Anwa Dramat in a certain light, in a bad light, he says. And of course, he also went into details about how the minister, or the then Minister of Police, Nathi Nhleko, had somehow, sort of not going directly or saying that he interfered, but had really involved himself in this case. In fact, he gave examples. For example, in November 2014, Nathi Nhleko asked to be handed the docket of this investigation, and following that, he then, a month later, subsequently found that Anwa Dramat was, guilty and that he should be suspended. He suspended him, in fact. And of course, he says this was not, correct of the minister to do, because as IPID at the time, their recommendation was that there was no evidence to support that the prosecution of Anwa Dramat as well as General Sibiya. So he says that took them aback, because all the evidence, and in fact he says the report, or the final report that they had given at the time, had clearly indicated that there was no evidence to go ahead with the prosecution. But he says this is where all their problems started with the then Police Minister Nathi Nhleko. Let's take a listen.
For the first time, I didn't realize that Werksmans has released the report. Now, as people who are implicated in the report, no one dared to contact us about this. The journalists that were writing the story, Mzilgazwa Africa from the Sunday Times, as well as Mr. Hofstadter, never bothered to contact us about this report, which was making adverse findings against us. These are the very same journalists, Chair, who made reports on the SARS rogue unit, also on the General Boysen's issues with Katomen. The same journalists. So, to me, it looks like they were working with particular people within the cluster to push a particular agenda.
Manqoba, we also heard there about allegations of what's taken place in terms of journalists and perhaps their role in that. Did we get a sense of what the state of IPID is now after these things have happened?
Well, we haven't really gotten into that yet, but interestingly, as you've just mentioned now, and the clip that you've just played now, also making reference to some of those journalists having been involved in such cases. Of course, this is not the first time we're hearing this evidence. We've also heard it from the likes of Robert McBride when he appeared here, alluding to the fact that, certain journalists kept on, reporting on these matters. For example, the SARS rogue unit matter was also reported by the same journalists, and of course, the other issue was also the issue of the SARS, besides the SARS rogue unit, but the issue of the renditions itself was also being reported by these individuals. Of course, we do know that the Sunday Times has, taken issue with this, issuing an apology, and of course saying that, these stories, admitting that some of these stories were not correct at the time. But interestingly, that evidence pointing, and he's saying that, it was interesting because it seems at the time that they were working with certain individuals within the police to also try and carry out these stories. So at this point in time, he says that, with regards to IPID and how it's operational, many of the things at the time were wrong. There were many red flags when it came to this investigation of the Zimbabweans and the renditions of the Zimbabweans by those people that had been implicated at the time.
Manqoba, we know that you are on a break at the moment there at the Commission of Inquiry. Do you know what's going to happen after that?
Well, Nzingo is still expecting Mr. Sesoko to continue with his testimony here. And of course, we are expecting another IPID official, that is Innocent Kuba, who was directly involved in this investigation. He was the man that was tasked to investigate the rendition case. And of course, there were certain allegations that were made, and he was also put under pressure to release a progress report, which later became an issue because that really ultimately started an investigation by the police minister using an external law firm to look into this issue and the allegations that, this report was altered. So he's going to detail his side of the story with regards to what happened in this investigation.
Manqoba Mchunu giving us an update there from the Commission of Inquiry in Parktown, Johannesburg. Manqoba, as usual, following that story, keeping us updated as the day unfolds.